Hi, and welcome to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, a weekly conversation with women who found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm your host, Dawn Davis, and this is episode number 1. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, you can find us on the web at desertladydiaries.com. You can also call with questions, comments, or compliments at area code 760-392-1293. The number's on the website, as well as an email contact form if you'd rather do it that way. If you leave a message, your question might make it on the podcast. In this episode, we're talking to Sarah Witt, who's going to talk about going out and identifying and foraging plants in the desert that she can cook with.
I probably shouldn't be chewing gum.
Probably not. Today, we're talking with Sarah Witt, a plant lover, food cooker, and desert walker, who was also instrumental in starting a event in the area called High Desert Test Kitchen, which took indigenous ingredients, I would say, from the desert, and people participated in researching those ingredients, what they could make with them, and then coming together to eat that food and share their experience of foraging and using it to cook and all that stuff. So welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Thanks, Dawn. You have such a nice voice.
Thank you. So let's just start right out with, how long have you been a permanent resident of the desert?
I moved here the first week of June last year, so almost 14 months.
Yeah. I'm coming up on a year.
Yeah.
This month, so.
There's a lot of us that just moved out here in the past couple of years.
Kind of like a little wave. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about your very first time here.
In Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
Well, I've been living in St. Louis, where I'm from, but previously I'd been living on the East Coast, and I'd been in school and trying to be an artist, and I had gone to school for it twice, trying to hustle, and it wasn't working, and I was, in my early 30s, and then my mother became ill, and I moved back to my hometown to take care of her, and I kind of started my life over and just said, I'm just going to live and love what I'm doing, and I did that. I stopped trying to push myself in the art world. I just kind of got a coffee shop job, and I took care of my mother, and I did that for a couple of years, and it felt really good to just be a human and not be this, robot that's, how do I look on paper and on my webpage? And
I call it the hamster wheel.
Yeah. So I moved back home, and then, she passed away, and I felt really kind of like, what am I doing? Like, I had moved home to take care of her, and that role was finished. And my dad had decided he was going to move to be closer to my sister who has kids. And I had this trip to the desert planned pretty much a couple weeks after she died. So I was very, kind of just swimming in this, I felt very vacant and kind of like this relief, but this...
Now what?
Yeah, exactly. So when I came out here, I've always loved the desert. I've been to a lot... I spent time in Arizona and Utah and New Mexico, but I'd never been to the California desert. Okay, I take that back. My dad is from Southern California, and his mother and father lived in the desert. We would visit. So I had been there as a child, but not as an adult. And I had always been drawn to it. So I came out here, and I just was like, I'm just going to go on this road trip. And then I felt very free and kind of vulnerable and pliable, and whatever came my way, I was ready to accept that. I just felt this really I had a really kind of awful experience in the Mojave Preserve where I got lost on like a 16-mile hike, and then it got dark, and then it started to rain, and then it was terrifying. I thought I was going to die, but I was okay with that. It was really weird. I was like, I'm okay if I die today.
Right.
I felt this that's what happens. You just die. So I was ready for that. But I made it out.
Obviously.
Yay. Yeah, but it was pretty scary.
That sounds harrowing.
It was stupid. It was actually dumb.
Oh.
Because I hadn't done a lot of desert hiking.
Okay.
And washes, they all just kind of weave together. And this trail was not marked very well.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like the preserve. It's not the national park.
Right, yeah.
So so that I had just done that, and then I was coming into Joshua Tree through Wonder Valley, and I started to feel this sense of a humming where everything was clicking and coming together, and I felt really serene, but very clarity, a lot of clarity and alert and kind of like, I don't know.
That's amazing. I call it, I had a very similar experience, but coming in the opposite direction, coming in up over Yucca Valley. Friends of mine, we took a random trip here, and we were coming over the hill into Yucca, and I said, the feeling was like something was telling me to stand up and pay attention. It was kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was this like, something about it was so exotic. And now when I drive through Wonder Valley, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, what was it? Yeah, I kept getting out of the car to look at all these little abandoned homesteader shacks, and I just felt this, like, sense of belonging. And then I got to the national park, and it was just like, it's April. So it was perfect.
Yes.
And I was like, I found this great campsite next to a huge boulder that was like, 80 feet tall, and I felt like a wild woman. I was like running from my car to my campsite and like setting stuff up. Like I had energy like I had never. Okay, I take that back. I always have energy, but it was like I felt really alive.
That's cool.
And I was like, wow, I love this place. Like, why not move here? And then it was like I had that in my head, and then I went to I don't know, maybe I'm going too far because I'm telling you why I ended up moving here.
It's fine.
But,
yeah. No, you're doing a perfect segue.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so I went to the Integratron, and I was like, for my first sound bath, and I was just like, whatever, like, I'm not really hippy-dippy, to be honest. I'm pretty, like, science, hard facts, reasonable, rational. I'm not really whimsical. I'm not into magic. Maybe now I am a little bit. But, I'm pretty practical. So I went to the Integratron, and I got out of that sound bath, and I felt like I was just floating. I felt so in touch with myself. And I was driving down Old Woman Springs to go back to the national park where I was camping, and I saw a restaurant for sale, and it was $29,000 or best offer. And I had been doing all these pop-up dinners in St. Louis, and I'd had lots of dinner parties. That was my thing. Right. Every week I would have like a different group of people over.
I saw something on your website called Bring It or Bring.
Yeah, okay. That was a potluck, kind of like Iron Chef style, where people would bring ingredients. I wouldn't know what they were, how many people were coming. And then like a couple friends and I would just quickly prep everything, cook, a crazy spontaneous meal with like 30 or 40 different ingredients. We didn't know what they were going to be. It was great. It was really, that's my style. Kind of like.
That's fun.
Over stimulated and just too much to handle at once. I work well under pressure, so
that's
it was a good project. But I was really into cooking, and my friend I just visited in LA we were talking, and she said, I don't know why you don't open a restaurant. You should just open a restaurant. And so with that kind of as the whatever I'm thinking about in the back of my head,
right,
I see this restaurant, and I said, I'm just going to fucking do it. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm moving here, and I'm going to open a restaurant. And I didn't buy that restaurant. That restaurant is actually La Copine. Okay. They ended up moving in there. And
gotcha.
Yeah. I've been working at La Copine for the past year.
Is that considered Flamingo Heights? Landers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's Flamingo Heights.
Oh, okay.
Yucca
Just for
Valley.
reference for people that are listening. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really good.
It's
oh my gosh.
It's awesome food.
Yeah, it's delicious.
I cook there. I don't make the recipes up. I'm not the chef.
Right.
I'm just a cook.
But they've got some, it's a really interesting menu and really good food.
Yeah, so, definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was like, I'm just going to do this. And then I went back to my campsite, and I was like, am I really going to do this? I was like, yeah, I think so. And I came home and I told everybody, and people were like, okay. Because I have this history of moving around. I lived in like 19 different places as an adult. Yeah, I've kind of like 1 year here, 3 months here, half a month.
So with that in mind, do you feel like you found something that will keep you here? Or do you think this might be just one of those stops along the way?
For the first time in my life, I'm feeling kind of this. I've always had this kind of like frenetic, like, okay, now where am I going? Now what am I doing? I've had like 48 jobs. I have them written down. I'm always moving around, changing. And when I got here, I realized I think I'm exhausted. And for the first time in my life, I don't want to go anywhere. And I knew that I had the summer off from work, and was just like so torn up because I was like, I don't want to go anywhere, but I hate the desert in the summer. I hate it here in the summer. Like last summer was awful. I mean, for me, it was okay. I shouldn't say I hate it. Maybe you can edit that out. Yeah. I found it very difficult because I felt like I was in prison all day waiting for the sun to go down.
Right. I call it being under lockdown.
Yeah, and
like
then
your shades are pulled, the doors and windows are closed. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're like peeking through the blinds. Like, is it time to go outside yet? Yeah. And I just felt trapped last summer. So, but I realized I didn't want to go anywhere this summer.
Oh.
Well, I was going to hike the John Muir Trail, but... Changed your mind. Yeah. So anyway, I feel this need to stay. I don't know if it's forever. I'm kind of short-sighted, I think, in, like, blocks of 5 days and not 5 years. Mm-hmm. But for the first time in my life, I thought, I want to buy the house I'm living in, you know?
Okay.
I enjoy relaxing. I used to hate relaxing, and now I'm like, I can't wait to just chill, sit outside and look at the stars and let my brain go into autopilot. You know, it's this thing I used to never do. So I feel like this place has changed me in a way. But yeah, I don't know if it's forever. I think it's for a while.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. Yeah. But and it's good that you're conscious and aware of how it's changing you.
Mm-hmm, totally.
Yeah, some people are just on autopilot and not feeling. So speaking of sitting home and looking at the stars, do you feel at all isolated here? And if so, is that, how much of that is self-imposed?
Yeah. Well, I'm a loner. I had a friend from Germany who always called me the lone wolf. You are the lone wolf. And it's true. I live alone, and I've lived alone for a long time, and I just kind of do my own thing, and I'm very independent. So if I'm isolated, it's definitely self-imposed. I have a lot of contacts, and only in the past week have I started to kind of go stir crazy because I haven't been working, and I've been trying to get a couple of other projects off the ground, but it's people are out of town right now, and I definitely have been feeling a little of this, like, help, but by no means am I, it's by choice. I have friends all over the area that I could just go find if I
wanted to.
Right, and I think,
I don't know, there is something, I find something about just the silence, the quiet. I enjoy it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah. So I would say I'm kind of 50-50 on the isolation. There's plenty of places to go and things to see and do if you want that experience, but it's also really cool to just be in your space.
Yeah, I mean, I've always lived in cities, and I don't, New York and Boston, and I don't miss any aspects of that. I'm not somebody who would ever really... I'd never had like this, gotta go to this show and, gotta see that. And I've always kind of been somebody who gets busy at home or goes out for like long rides on my bike or long walks. And so for me, actually staying in Pioneer Town for a week at a time and not I never go out to eat. Well, there's nowhere to eat here, but
well, that's I'm eating a lot better because of that, though.
I don't like go into town ever. I'm in Joshua Tree like once every 2 months, generally to take care of some sort of business.
Right.
But
so when you moved here, did you? How did your posse, if you will, or the people that you're in contact with now, did you know anybody here when you moved here?
No.
And then what kind of things did you do to kind of make connections and meet people?
Right.
Build your community, as it were.
Yeah, I didn't really know anybody when I moved here. I did like a little short live-work residency over at A to Z West with...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Andrea Zittel.
Right.
And I had this idea that I wanted to try the high desert test kitchen, and I floated it by her, and a week later she asked if I wanted to do it under the umbrella of high desert test sites.
Right.
And I was like, sure. And so actually through that's how I've met a lot of people. Kip has this book club, and a lot of his book club people kind of overlap with the high desert test kitchen people, and so I met people through that at work. I've met people through my job.
Right. So it's all kind of happened very organically.
It's very, definitely. I didn't know. I had met Kip Felt before I moved here. That's
Right.
it.
The what did Annalise Kuiper, who writes for the High Desert Star, called him the most extraordinary neighbor or something like that.
He's like the ambassador for
right.
the people.
He's like the welcome
desert.
wagon.
He's the welcome committee.
Right.
Yeah, he's
Absolutely. And he's very knowledgeable,
generous, and very supportive of everything that happens here in this community. And he wants everybody just to thrive. He's, he'll be out there like plowing the road by himself.
Right.
I think that's like for real.
I think that title of the article came up because there were some potholes and things on the road up there that he'd gone out and bought some
single-handedly
stuff to fill in the potholes for everybody.
Yes.
So most excellent neighbor. I think that was the quote. So you mentioned you like walking around in the desert. Is that one of your favorite things to do? And I know you did also a plant a day kind of a blog on your website, which is, if anybody wants to take a look at that, it's sarahwitt.net. That's Sarah with an H and Witt with 2 T's. And I'll put it in the show notes if you want to go check it out later. So talk about that, how that, makes you feel, how the experience is going out.
Yeah, well, I think I love going on long walks. And for me, it's like this meditative thing that I do when I need to think through something, or I'm just feeling kind of congested and, I can't, just kind of congested in my thoughts. I'll just walk it out for a couple hours. And, since I'm interested in plants as a cooking medium or as the substance of our meals, I'm interested in desert plants. I thought, well, I should get to know the plants in my neighborhood because they're blooming. Like, this is the time. Flowers are the best way to identify a plant. And so in the spring, every couple of days, a new, previously skeleton twig tree suddenly had, like, leaves. And then suddenly it had these little colorful blooms. And I'm like, oh, what are these? So I thought, you know what? Every day for the next month, and it ended up taking 45 days, not 30, I'm going to identify a new plant. And it actually was a really rigorous exercise in learning botanical terminology and how to, key out a plant using pretty technical literature. But I ended up identifying almost every plant that grows on my property and the surrounding properties in Pioneer Town. So yeah, that was a great exercise. I thought, maybe I can cook with these, but it turns out a lot of the plants may or may not be edible, but it was more for me about being determined to finish this little project and getting to know what's around me and being disciplined.
And in the process, I think you ended up then finding even more ingredients to bring to High Desert Test Kitchen.
I don't know if I did. No. There are a couple plants I want to work with myself, but that I would never put on the test kitchen agenda because they're too obscure or they might not grow in areas that people have access to, because where I live is a very different ecosystem from Joshua Tree.
Right. Yeah, it's beautiful up there.
Yeah, I really like it. I didn't expect to be up there, but now I don't want to be anywhere else.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Are there any new things you've tried since you moved to the desert, or things that you've seen that you might want to try?
For me, I guess just being in one place and not thinking so much about where next or what next has been something I've been trying. I mean, it's just happened. No, not really. I think it's more like I actually want to stay put and set roots, and I've never had that desire. I would go on artist residencies and, a year-long, half-year, whatever, and 1 month in, I'd be like, all right, what's next? And I'd be sending out applications for the next opportunity.
Almost like I'm not appreciating what's happening now in front of me.
Not that I wouldn't appreciate it, but it was like the lifestyle that being an artist, it demands you to be kind of like all the time, just where am I, what's next? It's not healthy, I don't think. Yeah, I talk a lot, sorry.
That's okay. That's our signal.
Okay.
For the 20 minutes, but finish your thought.
Yeah, no,
please.
I mean, for me, I felt like the art world was this kind of, I'm not going to diss on the art world right now, actually. It just wasn't working for me. And I felt like I had my fingers in like a Chinese finger trap, and I just kept pulling and it kept not working. It was harder and harder. And so when I came out here, I was like, okay, I'm just going to center my life around this one thing. And it's like the first time really I've had a an idea and just followed it for, like, I don't know, I've never gone this deep with one subject. So it's really weird that I'm like, oh, yeah, now I can identify plants using the Jepson manual, which is the most technical.
But did you find like there were, as you were going through that process, did you find it was like really smooth and easy?
Yeah,
there were no roadblocks, no hiccups, no.
They're definitely like
just challenging.
There's stress, and right now I'm trying to I've got a couple of new projects in the works, and I'm finding that I'm getting really stressed about that, and I'm kind of going back into like old modes where I'm like, like, okay, no, and making like 300 lists and trying to do everything, and I prefer the simplicity that I know there's a part of me that loves chaos and just having too much to do.
Well, you said earlier you thrive under pressure.
I do, and so I'm kind of last minute, but I'm working on not being last minute. It just happened. I'm not trying. It just that's what happened when I moved here. Is I found this desire to have a longer vision and like think in 5 years if I instead of 5 days like I normally do. But
so something's definitely shifted.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's weird.
By being here. Yeah. That's cool. Well, since the bell went off.
Okay.
And we got really, we covered a lot. One of the reasons I started this podcast was 2 years ago, I had the thought of doing a blog that would provide information to young women, say from the 15 to mid-20s, late 30s, about things that I wish I had thought about or did when I was younger. How I knew that would have, if I known how it would have affected where I am now. So I solicited questions from my niece, who was 15 at the time, and I still haven't answered any of them. I've decided to do a little jar with random questions. Okay. So Sarah's picking a random question now. I call it Emily's jar because that's my niece, Emily.
Cool.
We'll see what the answer might be from Sarah's perspective.
Okay. Is there a good way to keep strong relationships with friends from high school carried into adulthood? I'm going to have like a long answer here, so I'll try to let me just think for a second. I will say that my most long-lasting friendships are actually from high school, but they actually are, amazingly, the people that I could call today and not feel weird about calling, because we know high school is that time where you are going through so many, emotions and changes, and the people that move through those difficult days with you, because high school is hard for everybody.
Yep.
Those people know who you are at your core, and
where you came from.
Exactly.
Because your families are there. You're still in your hometown, if you will, and
So but what's funny is like for a long time relationships weren't important to me, and I'm somebody since I've moved around a lot, and I don't use Facebook. I have not ever used Facebook.
Right.
I'm the kind of person who lives in the moment and says, I make friends where I go, and when I leave, it's okay to let go. And, that's a philosophy I still live by. Is like, I've lived in so many different places that you can't hang on to everybody. It's not healthy to do that.
No. And I believe, too, sometimes people come in and out of your lives for various reasons.
They do, for sure.
And I call those either situational or geographical friendships.
Yeah.
They served a purpose at that time. And like you said, then it's just time to shed that, let it go, and move to the next.
Yeah. I would say about this comment, though, I think it is really important everywhere you go to not... Because I'm somebody who used to be really career-oriented and, like, really obsessed with my professional stature and, whatever. Even though I was not getting anywhere and I would work as, like, a bicycle tour guide on the side, I was still trying to be this artist. Took myself very seriously. But I didn't make time for friends for years. For a decade, maybe. I had no social life. I had a lot of contacts, and I would, go out to, whatever, friends' music shows. But I generally would turn down social offers because I had to work. I was too busy. And that's when I moved to St. Louis, I changed that. I made a conscious effort to meet people and to have friends, and it's changed my life. Like to be able to like trust people and know people and have a community. I think that's really important. Don't let your career ever come in front of people, because people are what make life great. People are they are life. Without them, you're just, who cares what you do? So don't ever,
I think we'll end there, because I love what you just said.
not
Thank
very
you.
eloquently put. Sorry.
But it's from your heart.
Yeah.
And that's what matters. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Dawn.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for listening to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast. There are so many ways to spend your time, so thanks for spending it here with me and Sarah. I hope you got some insight and inspiration, and if you did, I hope you'll share it with me and the other listeners on the Desert Lady Diaries Facebook page. If there was anything on the episode that you want to follow up on, you'll find that in the show notes or on the blog on the website, desertladydiaries.com. Next week, I'm talking to Mary Hunter, who came to the desert to relax for a couple of months, ended up staying, and starting her own band. I hope you'll join us then. And if you're enjoying this podcast, I hope you'll share it with a friend. Thanks.